target the specific advocacy issue. Welcome to the second video of the BC Advocacy Manual series. Context analysis and situation diagnosis provide for the information needed to identify the problem to be addressed by the advocacy activity. Despite all our goodwill and generosity, it is difficult to solve all problems at once. So, we have to be focused. We do not necessarily have all the knowledge in every field. We have more expertise and experience in some areas than in others. The aim is to stay focused, to avoid embarking on a general and vague project that exceeds available internal capacities, experiences, expertise, and skills. Why is it important to identify the problem? It is important to target the advocacy issue from the outset in order to avoid spreading yourself too thin. And also to avoid generalities and wasting time. Equally, to make the most of capabilities, skills, and resources. And finally, to optimize the effectiveness of advocacy activities. For example, combating extreme poverty is all well and good. But it would be more effective to start with access to education, access to primary health care, and access to safe drinking water. Rather, it is about solving specific problems that have an impact on the global context. What is the point of targeting the advocacy issue? Targeting means adjusting and aiming better. This ensures to focus on the essentials. To match advocacy objectives with available human, technical, logistical, and financial resources. A better knowledge of the players, decision-makers, or interlocutors who will act in the direction of the defined objectives. And finally, to optimize resources, skills, and knowledge.
How to identify the problem. Starting from a global problem, we can identify intermediate problems until we reach the specific ones. In this way, the general problem can also be broken down into more smaller issues that can be addressed as part of an advocacy process. We have tools to help better target a problem. We propose the funnel system. It consists in moving from the description of a general problem to a specific one. From a general problem, we can identify subproblems and, from each of these, much more specific problems. These specific problems will then enable us to develop a concrete, targeted advocacy activity. For example, from the macro problem of school dropout, we can see the lack of schooling for street children. But more than that, when we look at the lack of schooling for street children, we see that their absence is due to practices that take place in schools, such as sexual violence and corporal punishment. These are two specific problems to be taken into account in our advocacy work. By working on these points, we can combat the lack of schooling in the medium term and school dropout in the long term. The more specific the subject, the greater the chances of achieving the advocacy objectives.
The recommendations formulated as part of the review of regional and international human rights monitoring mechanisms are another valuable aid in our effort of identifying problems. In some cases, the analysis and diagnosis have already been carried out and the problem identified. This gives rise to the concerns expressed by United Nations human rights monitoring bodies, including the Committee on the Rights of the Child, while reviewing the situation of child rights in a given country. It may also involve the monitoring endeavors of regional human rights and child rights mechanisms. Following the concerns expressed, the monitoring body issues recommendations on specific problems. These recommendations can then be used directly for advocacy purposes, in particular to monitor their implementation by states' officials.
We hope that these ideas will contribute to the identification of a specific problem as the second step in an advocacy process. On behalf of BC, we thank you for your attention.